Hello everyone, I'm Corbin and this is Plant Basics. In this episode, I will take you through my top 10 houseplant tips. So my first tip is to match the plant with your light conditions. And this means that it's no use putting a cactus in low light and it's no use putting a fern or a alocasia in direct sunlight. It's important that you match up your lighting conditions with the plant that you choose. Now there are certain plants like ZZ plants, snake plants, aglaonemas that do well in low light. And there are other plants like succulents and cacti that do well in direct sunlight. So it's important that you choose the correct plant for the correct position. What a lot of people often do is that they choose a plant that looks pretty and they put it where they think the plant looks pretty, but that's not always where that plant will thrive. So it's important to really go and do some research and to really look at what plants will fit your specific conditions. It will also save you a lot of heartache and money down the line. The second tip is to always ensure that you water correctly. So when you water your plants, always make sure that you check the cover pot or the drip tray for any excess water and to empty that out. If houseplants stand in any water, it will often cause issues like root rot. So always make sure that you empty out the water, because what happens is the water at the bottom of your cover pot will really take out any oxygen in your soil, and it will suffocate the roots and cause root rot. And it will suffocate the roots and cause root rot and eventually cause your plant to die. A lot of people also make the mistake that they keep their new plant too moist. Ideally, you should let the top 2 inches of soil dry out in between watering. If you notice that your plant might have yellow tips at the leaves, or that the stems might feel kind of limp, it could be an issue. It could be a symptom of incorrect watering and that your plant maybe has root rot. The third tip is to check your humidity. Houseplants come from tropical forests where they would have up to 80 to 90% humidity. So try to recreate a humid environment in your home. Obviously, you're not going to go all the way to 80% humidity, but somewhere between 50 to 60% is a good gauge for many houseplants. Certain plants like alocasias and orchids need higher humidity, whereas other plants like ZZ plants, snake plants, succulents, cacti, they can usually handle lower humidity. You can also place plants that require higher humidity in areas of your home, such as bathrooms or kitchens, where the humidity will naturally be higher. The next step on my list is to fertilize during the active growing season. So if you look at your houseplants, they grow in pots and soil, and sometimes the growers will actually put in slow release fertilizers into the potting mixes that they use, but often after a while these will be depleted, and so your plant really does not have any nutrition to access in the growing media. Plants grown outside will often grow their roots into big areas to access and get nutrition and minerals. So I will often fertilize my house plants about twice a month when they are actively growing, And I love to use organic fertilizers like kelp or fish emulsion, but you can also use chemical ones like a balanced houseplant fertilizer. Alternatively, you can also top dress your soil with a slow release fertilizer that will go into the soil as you water your plant. Just one thing to note, that if you use chemical fertilizers, you should periodically flush out the soil of your plant to get rid of the excess salts. The next one of my tips is to check for pests. So houseplant pests like spider mites or scale or aphids are actually quite common, and they can often go unseen for quite a while and really cause damage with your plants. So the best way to check for pests is to really take your plants periodically and just inspect the leaves and the undersides of the leaves and the stems. So if you see any blotching, small little blotches on your leaves, or that small patches of the leaves might be yellowing, really keep an eye out, because those could be thrips or spider mites. If you see that your plants have a sticky residue on them, it could be indicative of scale or mealybugs. So to combat houseplant pests, the first line of defense is to keep your plants clean. So always try to shower your plants to really get rid of any dust on the leaves. A lot of houseplant pests actually love warm, dark and dusty surfaces, so they'll often hide in plain sight on your plant. So if you're cleaning off your plants regularly, it will really discourage them from spreading and causing a big infestation. If you do notice pests on your plant, you can spray your plants with a solution of neem oil, which is an organic insecticide, and it suffocates them so they just die off. Alternatively, you can also use a systemic insecticide which you apply to the soil, and it gets taken up into the plant and then kills off your pest infestation. So for small spot treatments, you can use alcohol, and you can also use hydrogen peroxide. And this ties into our next step, which is plant hygiene. So plant hygiene would be to remove any dust from the leaves. It also means that you remove any sheaths or things from the base of your plant, really to get rid of anything where pests could get a hold of your plant and start a infestation. I often clean off the leaves of my plants, like my fiddle leaf fig or my monstera, with a cloth dipped in warm water. Some people also use milk to clean off their plants. Whichever one that you want to use is absolutely fine. Stay away from the artificial leaf shines, as I don't like using them because they're like aerosol, and I always feel that they can block the stomata of your plants. The next tip on this list is to use well-draining potting soil when repotting your plants. So the reason drainage is important is because the roots of your plants need oxygen to live and to grow. And if your potting mix is not well draining enough, it will often compact and it will take out any oxygen that there is in the growing media. I will actually link up above to my potting mix that I make for my house plants. You can amend store-bought potting mixes by adding in perlite or bark to increase the drainage. Compacted growing medias could also often lead to issues like root rot. And many times when you bring a new plant home, it's often best to inspect the roots and the soil, because certain growers will often use substandard potting mixes as a means to cut costs. So when selecting a plant and looking at the potting mix, always look for something where you can see perlite. Perlite is there to obviously increase drainage into the media. Also look for media that has cococoir in it, which is a fibery substance. Avoid hixtures that look like garden soil, because these will often compact very easily. The next step on my list is to really get into a consistent care regime with your plants. For me, consistency is really the key to epic next level houseplants, because if you are consistent in your care, you'll notice things like pests, you'll notice any issues with your plants before they become a real issue and you have to perhaps even discard your plant entirely. So what I always do is when I water my plants, I'll just have a look at the leaves, have a look at the stems, just to see that everything is still fine and I don't see any causes of concern. And as soon as I see something, I immediately go and I look online and I reference what the possible causes could be. I suppose it's much the same like a consistent skincare regime, a consistent exercise plan. When you're doing little increments of care with your houseplants, it will often mean that your plants over time will be healthy and happy. So the last step on this list is to really start with the beginner houseplants. I'll actually link to my video where I talk about my 5 easy beginner houseplants. What's great about the plants on that list is that they are easy to care for, they are forgiving of neglect, and if neglected, they will often bounce back quite quickly if given proper care again. So your hizzy plants, your snake plant, your monstera, pothos, Hartley philodendron are all really easy care and good beginner plants if you are just getting into the houseplant hobby. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving it a like, and please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss any of my future videos. I'll see you in the next video.